Well, now we're at a point in the tuning process where we want to begin to create a map for this 848. Okay. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our software, in our self-mapping screen, and we want to select a target air-fuel ratio to tune the bike to. So here in the mapping terminal with different buttons, I can click on this tab that shows fuel add percentages, and if I click on it, it'll change the target air-fuel ratios. We already have a map at 13.2, and what we'll do is we'll create this map at 13.0 and then later go back and check and see which map makes best power and best throttle response for this particular bike. Okay, so we're going to get the bike up and running, start the process, and begin mapping. Okay, now that the bike is up to temperature and we've got the bike running on the dyno, I'm going to select to show percentage of fuel being added because it's easier for me to see where the bike's currently running. With track operating point selected, we can see where the bike is running within the map actively. We select start to start the sampling process, and we're going to get the bike up to the first throttle position iteration. At this point, you let the bike accelerate with the throttle position steady, and at some point the bike will no longer accelerate. Once the bike ceases to accelerate, normally you roll off the throttle and let the RPMs decelerate until you're ready to start the next throttle iteration, which is 20%. And let the bike accelerate normally until it ceases to accelerate. And you repeat those steps for 30% through 100%. Continue this process for every throttle position until the map is complete. Off, you see Z-AFM no longer has a signal because the bike isn't running. We've just finished mapping the bike. We selected to click on stop, which stopped the sampling process. I'm going to unclick track operating point because the bike's no longer running. Okay, and if you look at this map of suggested value changes, there's various suggested fuel changes. Okay, now we don't have the final setting yet. After hitting stop, you want to come in and click retrieve, okay? At the end of the session, this is going to retrieve the most accurate information, because if you cross over one particular cell more than once, the Z-AFM is going to average the information from as many times as you went through that cell, and it's going to give you the most accurate information once you hit retrieve. So you want to make sure you do that. Now that we've hit retrieve, we can go through our map and give it a cursory look and see if anything pops out that we don't agree with or anything that looks funny. This is also a point where we may use this for troubleshooting to determine if something we were feeling out on the track can be attributed to fuel management. So if the bike stumbled, was that an issue with another product, or was it, you know, a lapse in proper fuel management? Okay, so if we wanted to do that, we could go here to our fuel add tab, click on it, and we already know our target air fuel ratios, but if we click on it again and it says show AFRs, we can go in, and instead of viewing a suggested fuel percentage change, it actually tells us the actual air fuel ratio our bike is currently running in every cell. So if we look at it, the bike's actually running relatively close. I mean, mainly 12.8, 12.6, 12.7. So we've got some dips in the map, some areas where we've got something like an 11.6, but that can be attributed to exhaust flow or other engine modifications that necessitate that particular amount of fuel for that cell. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. But we don't see anything huge jumping out at us here. We don't see anything like a 14.5 where the bike's going really lean, or a 10.0 where the bike's really rich. So it's looking reasonable. So what we can choose to do, we can come down here. Let's show fuel percentages again. Fuel add percentages. So we can take these values, and if we click apply all, what that will do is take the suggested fuel changes, the map of suggested changes, and apply them to our fuel map, so our bike will then run off of those values. But if we wanted to only apply a certain portion of this map, we could click, drag, and highlight those cells and only apply those values, okay? In this instance, I feel comfortable with the entire map, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna apply all those values. But before we do that, let me explain to you what we did. Our systems come with a slip-on map pre-programmed in each controller, and this bike has a slip-on map. As you can see throughout the map, it didn't require much fuel adjustment in most of the map. So you see +1s, +2, maybe a +4, maybe a -6 here. And what that's telling me is the slip-on map that we supply with the system was pretty close, but we could further dial this map in for this particular bike. Every bike's slightly different, and it can be advantageous to you to use a self-mapping kit to further dial in your map. So if we go to our fuel map tab, you'll notice that we already have an 848 slip-on map, okay? If we go back to self-mapping and hit apply all, the system's now taking that data and applying it to that fuel map, and you see a box come up that says finished applying adjustments to the main fuel map, okay? So that lets you know the function was performed. And now when we go back to our fuel map, those adjustments have been applied. And we can look over our map, see if anything pops out at us as being odd or something we can improve upon, okay? It could be a mix between the two maps. It may have taken out fuel in our slip-on map and added asked again to take out some additional fuel. So what I see here is an area of the map that I'd like to change. So right here, this is consistent with most bikes. When you're on the dyno and you're mapping for various throttle positions, you open the throttle up really quick to get up to 90% throttle opening, where you're letting a lot of air come into the engine initially. And our self-mapping kit is going to notice that the bike went lean because you just had that rush of air into the engine, which resulted in a leaner air fuel reading. So it's going to suggest that you add a lot of fuel here, which is normal. You're going to want that when you're riding your bike out on the street. You're going to want to add fuel to compensate for that air and take advantage and make power with that to project you forward. Right here, we've got some values that's asking to take some fuel out. And to better transition the map from these cells where we're adding fuel over to the rest of the map where it kind of smooths out, I see some negative values here that I don't agree with. So what I'll do is I could either highlight these values and change them to something more reasonable to my liking. For instance, a +15, or no, let's do +8. +8. And if I hit apply, you'll notice those values change to 8. So we went -3%, -11%, -9%, and we've got minuses on the other side of the +8s. And I did that to show you the smoothing feature on the software. So I got it closer, but it's still not exactly right. So what I'll do is I'll highlight the range of cells in question, and I want to blend those values together from cell to cell and make a better transition of power delivery in that part of the map. And what we do when we press the smooth function here in our modify selected box, it's going to blend those values. It's going to take into account the values in each cell and the values of the adjacent cells and kind of average them out and tend them to where it blends better. So I'm going to hit apply all for that one. And you've seen that now these values have changed and they're closer. So you don't get the huge rush of fuel that you did initially, but nor do you get the -23 and -24s that you were getting here at 5,000 RPM. So it's going to transition better. You've got added fuel, you still got some added fuel. It's going to slowly transition over and start taking fuel out and blend better with the map. So overall, you're going to end up with a much better performing bike and better throttle response in those ranges.